Hey, welcome back to another Just 5 Mins. Another one, in episode 150, goodness me. So, who doesn't like to ride the hype train? Me, I like to ride it. Anyway, I ranted about this in a couple of episodes back about ClaudeBot or what became OpenClaw, and funny enough, it's not about bashing OpenClaw, because I think there's quite a bit of work gone into it. But is it safe? Well, if you do things right, then yes. But the problem is with all the hype stuff, people say, just go set this up, put it on a, and look, dare I say, they're probably trying to sell, a VPS, a virtual private server, or even worse, people running out and buying Mac Minis to run this thing on. I mean, you can run it on an old laptop. You can run it in just a Docker container on your own laptop, PC. And one thing that I've been doing of late, I used to use ngrok.io, but I certainly have been doing more with Cloudflare tunnels, because they're fairly secure. Nothing's perfect. Nothing is perfect in any sense of the case, but something like Cloudflare tunnels, which doesn't cost you anything. The only thing that I did with Cloudflare was you can move an existing domain. It makes sense to have a domain with Cloudflare, so you can pick those up for $10 or something, or you can even purchase a domain through there. It just makes it easier, and it's a yearly cost, but it's minimal really. But other than that, you can run something like OpenClaw locally in a Docker container with the Cloudflare tunnel, so it's a little bit more secure. But after looking into it a bit more deeper, and again, it's not having a go at OpenClaw, I think it's quite fascinating about where you hook up Telegram or WhatsApp, and it's always on and it can do things and all the rest of it. But to be honest, once I had a play with it, and first of all trying to get the darn thing to run, yes, some people are saying, hey, here's a predefined script that will do everything. I like to try to do it all from scratch so I can see exactly what's going on. But anyway, even getting that going, then there's so many configurations to go through. And I understand this is, it's to be expected. But if you don't really know what you're doing, you really can get yourself into a bit of a pickle. And let's face it, if you're connecting up your email and even worse, more private sort of services, if you don't really know what you're doing there, that's quite dangerous. And because of all the hype and people just flying at it and setting it all up. Anyway, it then made me think. I had a little play actually, and I did ironically go and use Hostinger VPS. I could have used any other one, but it was quite cheap, and it runs essentially Ubuntu Linux with Docker, so it doesn't matter. That wasn't the problem. But I then realized, I thought, well, hang on a minute, I've been building n8n workflows to do this sort of stuff anyway. The always on bit, well, in n8n, you can have the equivalent of cron jobs, which are, scheduled tasks to do things. So first of all, you can certainly in n8n hook up Telegram and WhatsApp or other methods. You can email in, you can telephone in, for goodness sake, so you can actually speak with your personal agent. So you can do all of that, and it can also run on schedules, going and check things, checking the weather. I know it's a bit sad, isn't it? But it could give you updates, and it can push you the channel back to WhatsApp or Telegram, or even via a phone call. I mean, that could get annoying very quick, couldn't it? So it can it is always on. It is always running. You can have event-driven workflows, but you can also have those scheduled things. So you've got sub-agents in your n8n workflow that are going off and doing stuff on a regular basis. It could be every 30 seconds. It could be every minute if you wanted to. It doesn't matter. Or every hour. But the point being is the n8n approach is a bit cleaner for a few reasons. First of all, you have to log in. Yes, you've got to secure things in the same way. I'm still using Cloudflare tunnels with n8n because the n8n Docker container, whether it's on your own local machine costing you nothing apart from your machine, or in my case on a VPS, the Docker container isn't actually accessible via the public. It's the Cloudflare agent that is on the host that is the secure link from your Cloudflare tunnel. And it's the only bit that can actually get inside your container. Again, nothing's foolproof. I'm not trying to say it is, but it's way more foolproof than just going for this OpenClaw thing. And like I say, I'm not bashing OpenClaw because when you look at what it's doing, it's really quite clever. It's just, I think, for the average everyday person trying to get started and with all the configuration options, you know, it can be overwhelming. And of course, the problem then is that you just grasp at stuff and go, oh, just open everything, you know. But n8n, you can also visually see the workflow. That's the big thing for me. You don't have to have one big workflow. You can have sub workflows. So you can really get quite complex. And of course, it's an integration tool to loads of other integration endpoints as well. So that's what I've got. I think I've set it up a few times now with Cloudflare running on a local Docker container quite successfully. But even if you want to run it always on, in quotes, on a VPS or even on an old Mac Mini, if that's what you really want to do, then, you know, you can do it. And I've got a few workflows running. And again, the big thing is, yes, you're going to have to pay at some point for the LLM. There are obviously local models that can do a reasonable job these days. You know, Llama and Quen and DeepSeek that you can run locally if your local machine is up to it. And I've done that even on really basic, you know, basic sort of PC without massive GPU cards and things like that. But if you do want a really good experience, you are going to have to pay either via an API to OpenAI or Anthropic, and you can pick between those. You can pick the model that best suits. So you can be cost sensitive and you can cap your cost. So if you don't want to pay whatever it is, $20 a month for a pro plan on those types of environments, you can just top up a little bit of credit on the API side of things. Claude, Anthropic do this, OpenAI, ChatGPT does this, Gemini does it. They all do it. So you can, and of course, as long as you turn off auto renew, unless you want it to, you can be sure that you're not going to burn through, you know, hundreds of dollars or anything silly. But the n8n approach is visual for one thing. I think easier to set up, and I think you can still do everything that OpenClaw can do, but probably in a more secure way. And the other thing that n8n's got, of course, it's got a guardrails node. You can do evaluations. So when you go through your prompt, to make sure that there's no prompt injections, you can do evaluations. It's got guardrails to actually upfront check that anyway. And that's really quite a big thing. But like I said, you've got full control. It can still pass messages to and from Telegram and WhatsApp and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, but I've set this up a few times with interacting with a few things, and even in OpenClaw, by the way, you still have to go to Google. If you want to use Gmail, you've got to fish through Google to get your token API to actually make sure you can connect OpenClaw to your Gmail, and you have to do the same in n8n. So any of those services like calendars or anything like that, you've still got to go through that, which, you know, it's not rocket science, but it's just extra steps that you have to do. anyway, let me know. I'll leave the comments open on this one. If you're interested in how to set this up with Cloudflare, whether it's a local free Docker container version with Cloudflare, or whether you want to use a cheap VPS or whatever it is, let me know. But I do think there's nothing wrong with OpenClaw per se, but I think if you want a more secure environment, then n8n gives you that. And I think n8n is easier to understand. It's very visual. You've got a drag and drop, nice workflow. And did I also say, sorry, that n8n, along with the guardrails and the evaluations, the prompt evaluations, I forgot to mention a really good feature that I think is really underrated, is where you can run the MCP server. So n8n, like everything, OpenClaw as well, you can run MCP servers to connect to loads of different systems. But the good thing with n8n and OpenClaw, I guess, is that you can run the MCP servers actually in mini Docker containers, so they're totally isolated. It's really underrated. It's nothing to do with n8n per se or OpenClaw or anything. It's a Docker thing. And it basically spins up mini micro Docker containers for the MCP servers. So anyway, all of that. If you're interested, let me know in the comments. Like I said, I'm thinking about putting another little short course together on this, but more, rather than just a course that you just follow along on your own, is actually, I really have some interaction. So we have maybe like a weekly check-in and go through stuff and try to solve some issues that we can as well. But anyway, ping me on whether it's LinkedIn or in the comments if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, it's an interesting world. It's an exciting time. But yeah, there's a lot of, unfortunately, because it's had so much hype with OpenClaw, but then you look at the security concerns and where, top security people have already identified thousands of security holes, not to mention, hackers being able to just get hold of the VPS or whatever and repurpose it. So there's quite a bit to think about there. A bit like this podcast that's meant to be 5 minutes. But anyway, that's what I've got. Let me know, and wherever you are, have a good day, a good week, and I will catch you on the next one.